so much for taking out your time and talking to PTV World.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, since earlier we were talking about the Iranian revolution, and then we also talked about the present day scenario. So if I may put this question to you, sir, regarding today's, when we talk about this year 2021, regarding the today's Iran, though there are a lot of sanctions on Iran, some, rather most, seem to be very illegitimate, but since there is a concern that, Iran might end up developing a nuclear weapon and so on and so forth, but Iran says and has always claimed that whatever progress they've made, that is regarding the civilian side of it, and that would be used in the medical science or otherwise. Now, first of all, your take, sir, since Joe Biden has come and a lot of people believe that the JCPOA, or for that matter, the P5+1 formula, could come back, and all the sanctions put by the American regime during the Trump's time, they could be lifted. Let's talk about that, sir. How hopeful are you, and do you believe that is going to be done? And if so, where do you see Iran in the next couple of years?
I'm skeptical that the United States will actually implement the nuclear deal because the United States has a history of dishonesty and deception, but also more importantly, the problem between the Islamic Republic of Iran and the United States is not about nuclear weapons. It's not about terrorism. This is just the surface. Otherwise, it's the United States and the Israelis that have nuclear weapons, and the terrorism that the Israeli regime and American allies that they carry out across the region and across the world is clear to everyone. The dirty war in Syria, the destruction of Afghanistan and Iraq and Yemen and Libya, the sanctions on Venezuela, and the support for the coup in Bolivia. This is a history that would be shameful for any country that exists on this planet. The problem, therefore, between Iran and the United States is Iran's independence. Iran is truly unique in the sense that it, through the revolution, became independent of the Western Bloc, but it did not join the Eastern Bloc. And it developed a unique foreign policy, which even today is unique, because as you know, Iran does not accept, for example, the legitimacy of apartheid in Palestine. Iran does not accept the legitimacy of Israel anywhere in Palestine, not just simply the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. And Iran has paid an extraordinarily heavy price for that policy. No other country has paid the price that Iran has, but Iran sticks to its principles, and that is something that the United States cannot tolerate.
Now, Professor, another quick comment on the current situation, because when you see the Gulf states accepting the state of Israel, for that matter, whether you talk about UAE or you talk about, you go further west, when you talk about Morocco, for that matter, and a couple of other countries, and obviously Saudi Arabia is on board, that's for sure. What sort of a role do you see of Iran now coming up, sir?
Well, Iran will continue to support the Palestinian cause, just as Iran supported the cause of the resistance in apartheid South Africa. Iran's policy towards the Israeli regime is identical to its policy with regard to South Africa. In South Africa, Iran said as long as apartheid exists, Iran will not have any ties with the apartheid regime because it is morally illegitimate. And Iran's position with regards to Palestine is the same. Iran's position is not limited to the West Bank or the Gaza Strip. It is linked to the whole of Palestine. And despite the fact that Turkey, the Emirates, Egypt, and other countries have official ties with the Israeli regime, despite the fact that they trade, and despite the fact that they have tourists come and go and direct flights, that has absolutely no impact on Iran's position towards Palestine. Iran will continue to support the resistance. Iran will continue to militarily support the resistance, unlike any other country. And Iran believes that this is the only way forward, because at the end of the day, apartheid is a morally destructive and despicable way of life. And the Palestinian people are being displaced, they're being ethnically cleansed, and they are being subjugated by people who have immigrated from Europe and the United States. So Iran is determined to continue to support the Palestinian cause as it did in the past, and whether the Americans or the Europeans like that or not is irrelevant to the Iranians.
All right, Professor, we have a very principled stance on the Palestinian issue. We believe that till the time the people of Palestine, they are not properly taken care of, their rights are given, and obviously this illegitimate state of Israel should withdraw from certain areas as well. We have a very clear-cut stance. Whether the Gulf countries, they accept Israel or not, we will not. Simple as that. But sir, may I ask you, what is the take of Iran when it comes to another very important issue, and that is the issue of Kashmir, where again poor Kashmiris are being subjected to torture on almost daily basis by the trigger-happy Indian forces. Your take on that, sir?
Well, two things. One is that Iran does not accept any partial withdrawal from Palestinian territories. The whole of Palestine, which goes far beyond the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, belongs to the Palestinian people. Of course, Jews and Christians and others have the right to live side by side with Muslims in Palestine, but the whole of Palestine is one and it cannot be divided. The same is true with regards to Kashmir. The Iranian position on Kashmir has always been consistent, and that is that the people of Kashmir have the right to determine their fate, and their subjugation is immoral, just as the same immorality is being witnessed in Palestine, or in Latin America for that matter. The same is being seen in Kashmir, and the hope is that ultimately a future government in India would recognize that the best solution for its own people and the best solution for peace and security and tranquility and trade and development is to recognize the rights of the people of Kashmir.
All right, Professor, thank you so much for your time, and good luck, and have a great day ahead. Thank you so much for talking to PTV World. It was a pleasure having you. And that's all we have for this hour. Inshallah, I'll see you again. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz.
Good evening, Assalamu alaikum. You're watching PTV World. I'm Fahim Bangish with the headline news for this hour. Prime Minister Imran Khan says malpractices in the Senate elections is negation of democracy. Talking to the media, he says open ballot will end horse trading and floor crossing. Prime Minister Imran Khan welcomes Sri Lankan Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa's assurance given in Sri Lankan Parliament, allowing Muslims to bury those who died from COVID-19. Addressing a ceremony in connection with the second phase of Ehsaas Kafalat program, Prime Minister Imran Khan says universal health coverage will be ensured throughout the country. Pakistan congratulates the leadership and the people of the United Arab Emirates on the outstanding success of Emirates' Mars mission HOPE probe. A three-member government's committee, headed by Defence Minister Farrukh, says all the matters with the federal employees will be sorted out amicably. The government is ready to extend relief to the employees in the form of special allowance till the presentation of the next budget. Foreign Minister Qureshi urges diplomats to be innovative and mould themselves according to modern demands of diplomacy to achieve goals efficiently and effectively. 7th edition of Multinational Maritime Exercise Aman 2021 is commencing in Karachi tomorrow. The 6-day exercise will be participated by 45 countries. Chinese and Indian frontline troops at the border began to disengage simultaneously. Chinese Defense Ministry says the withdrawal happens along the shore of Pangong Tso Lake in Ladakh. That's all for now. Further details and live streaming, do log on to our website world.btv.com.bk. You can find us on our Facebook page with the name of BTV World, and you can follow us on Twitter at WorldBTV. Thank you for joining us.
Pakistan Navy has conducted 6 Aman exercises, a multinational naval exercise in the North Arabian Sea. This year's exercise is the 7th in number, which have been held biennially since 2007. All previous naval exercises of the Aman series have been highly successful and were participated wholeheartedly by navies of friendly countries, ushering goodwill to Pakistan Navy. The slogan from the Aman exercise, "Together for Peace," sums up the entire gamut of Pakistan's aspirations. Not only Pakistan Navy is desirous of maintaining peace, but is also keen on including its friends, allies and partners in achieving amity. This year in February, navies from approximately 45 countries are expected to participate in exercise Aman 2021. The rise in number of participants bears testimony to Pakistan's rising relevance in the international pitch. The exercise has focused objectives which include projecting a positive image of Pakistan as a country contributing towards regional peace and stability, consolidating Pakistan Navy's position in the regional maritime arena, enhancing interoperability with regional and extra-regional navies, thereby acting as a bridge between the regions, and displaying of united resolve against maritime terrorism and piracy. The concept of the exercise has been designed to provide a common forum for information sharing, mutual understanding, and identifying areas of common interest for group analysis and dialogues through International Maritime Conference, developing and practicing response tactics, techniques and procedures against asymmetric and traditional threats, and intermingling of multinationals with depictions of their respective cultures during cultural shows. Together for Peace. Pakistan Navy has conducted 6 Aman exercises, a multinational naval exercise in the North Arabian Sea. This year's exercise is the 7th in number, which have been held biennially since 2007. All previous naval exercises of the Aman series have been highly successful and were participated wholeheartedly by navies of friendly countries, ushering goodwill to Pakistan Navy. The slogan from the Aman exercise, "Together for Peace," sums up the entire gamut of Pakistan's aspirations. Not only Pakistan Navy is desirous of maintaining peace, but is also keen on including its friends, allies and partners in achieving amity. This year in February, navies from approximately 45 countries are expected to participate in exercise Aman 2021. The rise in number of participants bears testimony to Pakistan's rising relevance in the international pitch. The exercise has focused objectives which include projecting a positive image of Pakistan as a country contributing towards regional peace and stability, consolidating Pakistan Navy's position in the regional maritime arena, enhancing interoperability with regional and extra-regional navies, thereby acting as a bridge between the regions, and displaying of united resolve against maritime terrorism and piracy. The concept of the exercise has been designed to provide a common forum for information sharing, mutual understanding, and identifying areas of common interests for group analysis and dialogues through International Maritime Conference, developing and practicing response tactics, techniques and procedures against asymmetric and traditional threats, and intermingling of multinationals with depictions of their respective cultures during cultural shows. Together for peace.
In the era of global news coverage, we aim to tell the truth. Through meticulous discussions and in-depth analyses about stories that matter the most. We underline key events as and when they happen. Watch Newsroom with me, Umar Khalid Bhatt, for a daily roundup of the latest international and local top stories.
Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farrukh Pitafi. Once again, we have to talk about more or less the same subject we have tried to focus yesterday and day before yesterday, and that is the Senate election. Why is it important? Because at this moment, the ruling Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf doesn't have the numbers in Senate. It has a rather weaker majority in the lower house, but at the center, when it comes to lawmaking, the role of Senate is very important. And we have seen at this moment, right now, you can see beside me the footage that actually is quite revealing how people have been in the past bribed when it comes to Senate elections. Just look at the amount that is being shifted right now in front of these people. Money is being placed, and that's how in this country votes have been bought for the Senate elections. So the government of Pakistan now says and has been insisting that there has to be an open ballot just to make sure that this aspect doesn't repeat itself. But there are critics apart from the opposition. Of course, opposition tries to criticize everything the government does. But there are neutral observers, pundits and critics who say that the government had 2.5 years to actually enact some kind of change that actually it is trying to enact now. It could have, for example, gone to the Supreme Court with the very same interpretation request, with the same reference. That is one aspect. The second aspect, and that is also amazing, is the opposition that actually agreed in principle in the Charter of Democracy that they are going to make the Senate elections open ballot. And now they seem to be dilly-dallying and actually opposing government's move. And amazingly, while you are looking at all of this, the question is how exactly the approaching elections are going to take place. One way or the other,
they have to settle, right? So we are going to talk about all these matters and more. In order to help us understand these issues, we are joined by Asim Shaukat Ali Saab, who is spokesman of Punjab government representing Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Kaswar Kalasra is a journalist. I want to say senior journalist, but he is quite young, so I'm not going to call him senior, right? Thank you very much, Kaswar, for being part of the program as well. And Rana Ehsan Afzal Khan, leader Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, is joining us on Skype. Rana Sahab, thank you very much for being part of the program as well. Let me ask the same question to you, Asim Shaukat Sahab, that I've been asking your previous party fellows who appeared in this program. Why did you wait for this long to bring about this change?
No, Pitafi sir, with due respect, from day one we have been saying that this is, ultimately it has to happen, that this is a very unfortunate fact that our leadership is being bribed, and it has become a norm in the political history of Pakistan, and every party has accepted it. It does not matter what lip service they have been rendering to it, but when it comes to the actual happening, they have always done the contrary.
Right.
And now, let me say, there is a saying that the best way to know the future is to learn from the past.
Okay.
If we see in the past, Imran Khan was the only man who single-handedly fought for neutral umpires in the international cricket, and he got it done. And now he is trying his level best to go for the open ballot, to go for the transparent elections, to remove all such ill practices.
And that is my question. Yes. I mean, I'm grateful you brought up cricket's metaphor and example. When the Prime Minister of Pakistan was playing cricket, and at that time he pushed for neutral umpires.
Exactly.
Was it close to some World Cup in the last days of the World Cup, or would he do it when he had time? I think it was later, है ना?
Yes.
So
actually, it was a long
why
process.
did you wait for 2.5 years?
No, but Sahab, there are so many things on the government's plate, and it has to be a time for everything. Now we are approaching towards Senate election, but I must say that it does not matter when we are doing. The important thing is what we are doing. If we are doing it now, which our predecessors failed to do for the last 70 years, or at least in the last 30 years, the good thing is that now we are doing it. And number two,
here's the problem, right? You approach the Honorable Supreme Court of Pakistan with a prayer, with a reference to actually clarify whether the election falls under the purview of Constitution or election, Amendment 2017, right?
Exactly.
And this is a very legitimate question. But because the schedule is about to be announced, you had to bring in an ordinance as well. And it is conditional to the Supreme Court's decision, which may not even come, who knows? You cannot actually put a timeline, which may not even come before the Senate elections. This is one. Then you also bring an amendment to the Constitution in the Parliament, and there too, we saw what happened. So why did you have to rush all these things and leave them all for the last days?
Actually, number one, why did we go to the court, and why we have issued this ordinance? Because once schedule is announced, then we cannot make any amendment or we cannot make any change.
And I get it.
So the timeline was very important. Again, I would say, if we are going to do something good, the rest of the parties should not question the timeline. They should just come with us to do something good, to have a transparent election. And we all know that what sort of bribes are offered to different parliamentarians, and this is very painful that our leadership is doing. And once you become a lawmaker,
for the second time you are using the word our leadership. I mean,
are
you talking about MNAs or MPs, or are you talking about political leadership?
No, I mean
of the
this
party?
political leadership. The senators are the leaders. They are a part of the decision-making process. This is what I'm trying to say.
That's a very interesting take. Kaswar, I'm going to come to you, but let me bring in Rana Ehsan Afzal first. Rana Sahab, you have listened to the interpretation of the government representation, but the question to you is not about what the government is doing. The question is about what PDM is doing, what your party is doing. So with due respect, it wasn't PTI that signed the Charter of Democracy. Point 23 of Charter of Democracy very clearly points out that the elections, Senate elections will take place through open ballot and identifiable votes. Why is it that now your party is dilly-dallying or flip-flopping, sir?
Thank you so much, Pitafi Saab, for taking my point of view. But before I answer your question, I must start with condemning the government's action of tear gassing and shelling employees of the government and teachers who were only demonstrating for their rights because of this high inflation.
That is a bit, with due respect, a bit rich of the opposition, because I remember when you were in power as well, these difficulties were there. I will be grateful for once that you answer my question rather than talking about something else.
I was just going to condemn it, and if there was any high-handedness in our government, that should also be condemned. So coming to your question, you see, yes, we are not against show of hands and transparency in the Senate election, but we are going for an amendment to the Constitution. Now for that you need to build consensus. For that you need to do your homework. You need to sit together and decide which bills need to be amended. Whether, when we go for the Senate chairman's election, for that also it should be show of hands or not. Whether if we're going for removal of the chairman's Senate,
just to clarify, nobody is now talking about showing hands at all. At this moment, the discussion is whether the election should take place through secret ballot or secret ballot where the votes are identifiable because a voter is asked to sign at the back. So nobody is talking about raising a hand or showing hands.
Open ballot. I'm talking about open ballot. Yes.
Yeah.
So these questions should also come for those. So there was no homework done with the opposition. It was rushed. They wanted to bulldoze it, and in the same while they wanted to go to the courts to get their opinion, where they knew already that it was a constitutional matter, and now that it is the first time in the history of Pakistan that an ordinance has been linked to the decision of the court. So their desperation and their bulldozing of the democratic process.
Just one question.
No, hang on.
For what? Just
hang on. Let me first ask you, sir. I'm happy that you got it out of your system. You had to contribute to what was said earlier. But can you kindly now answer my question as well? Why did you not actually? You have stayed in power for 5 years. For 10 years, ARD parties were or the signatory of Charter of Democracy were part of the Pakistan government, and you didn't actually bring about the open ballot system. And now too, when finally somebody else is doing, why are you opposing it exactly?
No, we're opposing it for the specific reason that you cannot bulldoze an amendment to the Constitution. There was no consensus building. There was no talks with the opposition or taking them on board. It was bulldozed. On one side you're calling and abusing the opposition, you're throwing mud at them, you're calling them thieves, and on the other side you don't even consensus or you don't make an effort to talk to them, and then when you put it up in the standing committee, you don't even listen to the opposition. And when the opposition talks about it in the assembly, then in response the government is thumping desks and is making noise.
So, just to clarify, you're not opposed to the idea of open ballot at all?
Yes, I think, and this is too expedited and too quick a move. We are up for it, and when after this election, when they take us into
they want one more election to be rigged.
Okay, I'm going to actually talk about whether somebody wants to rig the elections or not, but let me bring in the third guest.
Once you buy the loyalties of the parliamentarians, it means this is a rigged election.
Asim Shaukat Saab, we are going to talk about that as well, but let me bring in Kaswar Kalasra. Your take on what is going on.
Farrukh, I think these legislators have brought huge shame to the nation. and all of the world have seen what was happening behind the
You're
door
talking about
and
what
what
legislation?
Yeah, but
the ones who have been called on tape.
and I think and this type of legislation
All those who have
to
been doing
do the voting by hand should have been done in 5 or 10 years earlier as well. I think this is a subject what the PML known, the PTI and the People's Party and all the mainstream, the political parties have been talking about this.
Okay.
When the PTI has just, have guts to do it, I think the PDM and all the opposition parties should, put their
Support it.
put their.
Okay, I'm glad that I'm getting a lot of opinions.
Yeah.
But you're a reporter, you are a journalist.
I think
I will like you to actually tell me who's actually, in your view, or if you have heard anything about it, who's trying to bribe the lawmakers?
I think I don't know who's trying to make things fishy in the parliament, but the thing is, I think the best way to stop these black sheep to coming into the parliament will be to opt for to do voting by hand. I think it is the only way right now before the table. I think
hang on.
Yeah.
You realize that in Senate elections there is a complicated electoral college.
Yeah.
A. B, in Senate elections you have single transferable vote.
Yeah.
That means you are not going to actually just vote for one person. You are going to give a list of priorities for each seat.
exactly.
So you cannot do it by show of hands, because then you have to have at least 5 hands and you have only 2.
Well, it's not question of 1 or 5. I think
you get the point that at this moment even the government is going to go for the open ballot, which is conditional secret ballot, where the party chief, like in India, can always ask who voted for whom.
I think the legislators should have, guts to show some type of maturity, and we could not see in the past as well. But I think legislation or the show of phone or the open balloting, in my opinion, is the only way to stop such type of
Right.
to expose such type of legislators.
And now let me ask you.
Yeah.
You said you don't know who's trying to bribe people, right? Are you really, you really don't know, or you would rather not say?
Yeah.
Because we know who bribes people, right?
I think.
Okay, so who is that?
Sorry, I don't have guts to who has been the powers behind.
Let me jog your memory.
Let me tell you.
No, hang
it's not the
on.
first time.
Let me jog your memory.
Yeah.
2018.
Yeah.
A Balochistan government exists. One politician announces that he is going to sort PMLN out.
Yeah.
And then he designates a gentleman who goes, but all of a sudden Balochistan government falls apart, a new government comes into power, and then the same person comes here, and after the Senate elections have taken place, and the chairman Senate and deputy chairman Senate, deputy chairman from his own party is elected, and then all of a sudden the slogans that are raised on the floor of the Senate and on the National Assembly are in praise of that one man.
Exactly.
Is it that difficult to name the man?
Exactly, and thank you very much. No, who are the forces behind, such type of horse trading or such type of, bargaining as well. So, no.
Yeah, let me remind you of the slogan, and then I have to go to Shaukat Sahab. Azim Shaukat Sahab. Ek zaddari sab pe bhari.
Okay, ultimately you have taken the name yourself.
Thank you very much. I kept on trying to extract the answer. Then I had to.
You have to answer yourself.
You know the answer already.
Azim Shaukat Sahab, the video footage we have seen, there are 2 very important questions. One, this happened in 2018, right? Since then, if you had the footage, why didn't you produce it?
Yes.
If you were not the ones who were producing the footage, who were, and why didn't you ask them? And the final thing is, the people who are being bribed are from your party. And one of them was a law minister in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. He was asked to resign.
Yes.
Why is it that you are blaming other parties for bribing them, rather than actually putting your own house in order?
No, Pitafi Sahab, this is a very good question. We should realize that if anything bad happens, then Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf and the top leadership of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf always take actions. Imran Khan is not a man who takes things lying down.
Okay.
In 2018, when it happened, we had the news that something has gone wrong. We identified them, and this is unprecedented that some party sitting in the government expelled 20 of its parliamentarians.
Right.
Yes, it was dangerous because we could have lost our government over there. But we took the principal stance. Prime Minister Imran Khan, the then chairman of the party, took the principal stance, and we expelled 20 parliamentarians. Today, another man is highlighted, and he was forced to resign. No matter that we are in the government again, no matter that he was a part of the cabinet, but he was forced to resign. Now,
but
your second question.
Hang on. You might have expelled 20 people, but they had already cast the votes. Did you seek any kind of legal remedy where the votes that were cast could be nullified and the elections could take place without that kind of impurity?
Perhaps this is the proof enough that now we have the opportunity and we are trying our level best to rectify the things, to rectify the system.
But this is what I'm saying. I'm glad that, again, grateful actually.
We are still facing
that
cases in the law.
You created,
the court, sorry.
That you created the precedent. I'm grateful.
Yes.
But with due respect, since that precedent to this day, before going to the Supreme Court of Pakistan, you haven't done precious much in the matter, have you?
No, actually we are still facing cases from these parliamentarians who were expelled. Two of them filed case against the chairman, the then chairman Imran Khan, and this is the proof enough that we did not have any movie. It is a question.
You didn't have the videos?
If we had the videos, we would have presented them in the court. Why to face the cases in the court?
Right. So where were they hiding for 2.5 years?
Who? Those who have tapes. Video tapes. Yes, definitely.
That's the question.
No,
that's the question.
This is not the important question. Yes, everybody knows. Yes, there are agencies working in the country, and there were some forces who
You're
were
the first person from your party who is saying that it might have come from agencies.
Might be.
My thought was that there are many powers that be who are usually hovering about, and they want to actually slide in their own business card and actually also leak such footage. For example, there are journalists, there are local security companies that actually take care of the CCTV installations in your homes, and they might have recorded something, and that is how it was.
This can also happen. You are right. I've said
so
might be.
Why would you actually bring in the agency?
No. I said might be, because these are the forces, and their work is to monitor all such things, and they might be having something.
Right.
And it happens. It has been happening, and there might be what you are saying. But the thing is, one good thing is going to happen. All the political forces should join hands to bring this positive change in the system to avoid all these malpractices, and we are doing it.
Happen?
And we are doing all the platforms.
So wishes are not policies, right? You are actually reiterating what you have said earlier, that all should unite to ensure that no vote is stolen, right?
Exactly.
But with due respect, will that happen?
Inshallah, one day. And we are trying all the avenues, the ordinance avenues, the floor of the parliament and the courts, wherever we can go, we are going, trying to get it done.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You introduced the amendment on the floor of the House, right? There we saw physical violence between lawmakers, right? Then you withdraw from there. You went to the Honorable Court for clarification.
Yes.
But you went so late that the schedule is now upon us. And that's why you had to make sure that before the schedule is announced, you actually lay out some kind of groundwork. If a decision comes in your favor, you can ensure that the implementation takes place according to the ordinance. Right?
Yes.
Now the question is, again, first you were depending on the goodwill of the opposition. Now you are depending on the goodwill of the Honorable Judiciary. Judiciary is not bound by your timeline, is it? What if it decides on the matter on 15th of March? The elections have taken place, everything has happened. What will you do then?
I think again, this is a core constitutional matter. A legal expert opinion will be required to handle this issue.
You very clearly failed to nullify the results of 2018 Senate elections, where on record you know that 20 of your votes were bought, and you even expelled them.
Yes.
But the product of that malfeasance was never cancelled.
Yes, you're right.
Let me go back to Rana Ehsan Afzal Saab. Rana Saab, you're listening to the government's response. I'm sure that you want to actually chime in and you want to comment on what was said from the government side. But here's the problem. 2018 actually shows us that even with you, vulnerabilities haven't stopped. And particularly one of your allies in the opposition actually take pride in using money. Shouldn't you be working with this government to ensure that People's Party doesn't steal your votes as well as theirs?
You know, they're not worried about our votes. When we went for the no confidence motion for the Senate chairman, we lost 14 votes. Okay. And PTI never raised the voice. They were celebrating it. Okay. And our votes were stolen either through bribes or either through pressure. So, you know, the intentions of the government are not right. And then there is a way to bring about a constitutional amendment. They are not following that way. On one side, they are abusing the opposition. They are blaming the opposition. You're calling them names all day long. And on the other side, you want them to work with you on a constitutional amendment. Where is the homework? There is no homework.
Rana Sahab, one question. Are you sure that when the no confidence move actually was presented against the Chairman Senate, it was the government which actually stole your votes?
What else could it be? Could it be some special hands, some special interference?
Hang on. People's Party. Your own ally. They are also a ally of the government. Deputy Chairman is still with them.
Pitafi Saab, whatever it was, the government was celebrating it and not looking into the matter the way it is doing right now. And now you were talking about evidence and who is giving the bribes. In the only evidence which has surfaced through this video, the people who were giving the money were from PTI, the people who were taking the money were from PTI, the videos was leaked by PTI, and the place of this crime was the Speaker's house. So everything, and they are celebrating the leak of
I hear you, but you realize that the statement that you made is actually a talking point that came from Fatehullah Babar Sahab earlier today. Where is your party's brain trust, sir? It seems that every time your party is in politics, somehow Zardari Sahab actually managed to exploit both you and the government.
Pitafi Sahab, we are, we are not against open ballot. We are not against show of hands, but there is a way towards it. There is a way where you achieve this goal. The way PTI has been running this government is not through making consensus. It's not through bringing
one thing, please.
Please go ahead.
Let me complete. It is not through bringing the opposition on one table. They are bulldozing it. That is exactly what is happening with the teachers, with the students. They cannot make consensus. They are acting like dictators. And this way, they are not. Look at the assembly. For 2.5 years, they are unable to run it because the speaker is partisan. So this way, how can they expect the opposition to come running towards them and go for an amendment where there is no homework, where there is shortage of time, and you're going for you require a 2/3 majority to bring about constitutional amendments?
Right. I'm sure that culturally there is a phrase, very popular phrase, "Saas bhi kabhi bahu thi." That daughter-in-law was the mother-in-law once was daughter-in-law, right? Sir, with due respect, you have been in power. And here's the biggest point. I understand that there is a lot of bad blood between you and PTI. But with due respect, when it comes to the method in which you have been weakened by animosity, is it not important to ensure that the election process takes place without any kind of meddling?
Yes, I agree. When we were in power, we should have looked into it, and it is a sad fact that we did not. We should have looked into the NAB laws as well, and we did not. So these are our mistakes, and we are, being punished for that. And again, you see, it would have been better if the PTI government had brought these reforms earlier, where there was time to discuss, and they had at least the patience to listen to the opposition, to hear them out in the standing committee.
Now we are reaching somewhere. You have a very clear, you have identified the bad blood, the nature of bad blood, that the government is not ready to talk to you, or the government doesn't actually know how to work with you. I'm going to ask that question as well. I'm sure Asim Shaukat Sahab earlier wanted to say something as well. Allow me to actually finish the cycle, right? Kaswar Kalasra. Now the question right now is that if the elections take place without open ballot, do you see any magical transformation? Some party walking away with huge numbers?
I think that's the important question. Maybe this is going to happen in next election as well. But I think one thing is very clear: the money has been playing important role in such of election, and it will in the future. I think it will play its role as well. But the thing is now,
a question. A question.
Yeah.
You have been a journalist. You have been reporting for how long?
17 years.
17 years. In your 17 years, we have talked a lot about use of money in the Senate elections. But did we ever see evidence like now we are seeing?
I think no.
No?
There is no precedence in the past as well. But now one thing is very clear, that the money has been playing a role, and the PTI legislature, they have badly been exposed. But the important thing is the stance of Prime Minister, Imran Khan, that was really unprecedented. And I think the PTI, the PDM, and all the opposition parties should throw their weight behind PTI, and then this should be stopped now, and they can do it.
This is for second time you are saying this.
Yeah.
And in principle, nobody disagrees with that position.
Yeah.
But shoulda, coulda, woulda doesn't mean that it is going to happen, right? My question is, when political parties are at each other's throats, when they are swearing to punish each other badly, why do you think PDM would ever support the government?
I think they are not sincere, because the parties
it will not happen, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
the parties.
What will be the outcome?
Also, sorry.
What will be the outcome of the Senate elections?
I can't.
If money is used, if it is secreted ballot, and then no follow-up.
Definitely, the horse trading will be at the peak during the next elections.
Who benefits?
If you have revealed the names of
but here's the question.
Yeah.
In the past, whenever there was element of secrecy, usually it was the government that walked away with the prize. Do you think there's a possibility that even now, when the government is actually trying to expose the opposition's flip-flopping, in the end, as the Prime Minister pointed out, the government might actually walk away with Chaudhry Sarwar-like kind of result?
I can't
remember Chaudhry Sarwar?
Yes, exactly.
I remember. PTI had 30 votes.
Yeah.
And they got something like 54? Yeah?
Yeah.
Answer, please. Explain that.
Yes. 2-3 things. First of all, I would like to answer Afzal's question.
Rana Afzal's
allegation.
Rana
Ahsan's allegation. But after we have always welcomed them, and we are always interested to sit on the table with them to discuss all the issues of national importance, whether these are the judicial reforms or the economic reforms. So much so, we have offered them twice, thrice on the floor of the House to come and sit with us on the electoral reforms. But the problem is, whenever we try to engage them, they come up with a one-point agenda, that is NRU. And this is something we have told them quite often that this is not possible. Imran Khan, Prime Minister Imran Khan is very clear that what may come, he is not going to give any NRO. But this is the point where they refuse to talk to us. Whether it is kind of legislation or whatever.
Let me qualify another aspect. Let me jog your memory as well. You know, in PMLN, that is the largest opposition party in National Assembly, it has two trends or two groups. One is led by Shehbaz Sharif, who is pro-reconciliation, and the other one is Maryam Nawaz's group. Shehbaz Sharif on the floor of the House, being the opposition leader, kept on yelling atop his voice that he is ready for a charter of economy. You could have very easily engaged in dialogue with him, and by doing so, taken care that the hardline elements never gain strength. That man was part of the COVID meeting when Prime Minister came, delivered a speech, and went away. Didn't even listen to him. So, in the end, he is in prison, and the most aggressive people are out.
But the actions speak louder than words. We saw whenever there was an actual, when we engaged them on pitafi legislation, so you should remember what they actually did. They tried to blackmail us, and it was very
34
difficult.
points. Amendment in the NAB law.
They wanted to change approximately 34 points out of 39, and that was not possible. So agenda is just 1 point agenda.
Okay.
How to get these corruption cases waived? Otherwise, there is no. Now you can see on this point. This is a very important turning point in the history of Pakistan.
No, hang on. You think that Maryam Nawaz and Shehbaz Sharif are on one page regarding that point? And they are basically one group.
As far as corruption cases are concerned, they are on 1 point. As far as the ideological differences are concerned, yes, they may have two different ideologies or two different opinions in the party. That is quite natural. They may have. But when it comes to the corruption cases, they are all they are all having the same.
You don't actually. You don't believe in the old adage that is divide and rule. At all. You would rather unite them all and then rule, or try to rule.
But not at the cost of NRO. This is very clear.
You realize that Shehbaz Sharif needed a different kind of NRO. He needed more importance. I mean, photo ops between Shehbaz Sharif and Prime Minister. You refused to give him even that. He could have actually very happily, when it came to Chief Election Commissioner, to talk to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister was not even ready to talk to him. Consequently, the hardliners have gained strength, and the moderates who could have worked with you are irrelevant.
No, but I personally feel that Parliament works for the legislation. It is beyond personalities. Their legislatures should sit together, our legislators. If Prime Minister has given consent on some issue and his team is working in collaboration with the opposition, so it doesn't make any difference whether Prime Minister is talking to them or not.
What you are saying is great. I respect that. Likewise, I would like to be the richest man in the country, but I am not. I will need some plan to reach there, right? If you want some kind of working relationship with the opposition, you will need some path. Where is that path?
No, we have always invited them. Come and sit with us.
I have always thought that I should be rich, but I have never tried to actually do anything about it.
Again, you try to understand that what they are asking in return, this is something that is not possible.
And you have very clear about you have no way to actually retard that demand while engaging them.
No, they refuse to engage. As you have just seen the PDM staff.
He was waving at you.
Look, are you trying to say that there is no case against Shehbaz Sharif, or should we forget all the cases against Shehbaz Sharif?
The reality is, Shehbaz Sharif might have cases, but he is also the leader of opposition and he commands a sizable number in the parliament. You could have somehow used him, right?
Right now, he himself withdrew his bail application from court. So ultimately, automatically,
out of frustration,
he has to go behind the bar.
Because you keep on making him irrelevant. But again, Rana Ehsan Afzal Saab, why is it that your party seems to be returning to its very aggressive hardliner roots? I mean, we used to say back in 90s that PMLN doesn't have any reverse gear, it doesn't have any brakes. Why is it that every time we listen to your leadership, there seems that you just want to physically harm somebody?
Not at all. But first, let me answer on the question that we want an NRO, and the only thing on the mind of the opposition is an NRO. Up till now, after 2.5 years, the accountability drive of PTI has not only been tarnished, it has fallen on its face. Nothing has been proven against Abbasi Saab, SN Iqbal Saab, Rana Sanaullah. There was a reference, they could not file a reference against Hamza Shabazz. He was in jail for 16 months. Saad Rafiq's case. So whatever their claims, you talk about the Model Town case. So nothing has happened on the accountability side. We have gone through the cases and look at the judgments of the different justices and what they've said, how accountability drive is being run by the PTI government. So, we're not worried about it, and we don't want an NRO. So stop saying it. The only problem with this government
is... Hang on. Explain to me, why is it that during FATF reforms lawmaking, when your party was engaged with the government, at that time, why did you demand that there should be 34 changes in the NAB law? And that apart from that, money laundering should have some cutoff limit, and that should ensure. I mean, these are the things which are there
now,
in writing. The government has actually shown the record to the people.
Pitafi Saab, on this specific subject, let's assume that, they would have started a debate in the standing committee and then brought in whatever was discussed in the standing committee to the public. And then they had a majority in the assembly. Why could they not have moved forward with it? And what were they scared of? They have a majority in the assembly. Nothing could have been approved.
There seems to be some... you'll have to repeat the last sentence again. Right, there seems to be some...
I'm saying that the PTI had a majority in the assembly. If they would have discussed it in the standing committee, then things would have been brought forward that, the opposition is demanding such things. But it did not happen. Even before that, they started blaming...
I'm sorry, is it true that your party is so frustrated with the government that it would rather let anybody else actually steal your votes in the Senate elections rather than talk to the government at all?
The answer to that is, it is the PTI government's in-performance, incompetence in the last 2.5 years, which is making them fearful that their MPAs and their MNAs who are, they're not happy with the PTI and they might deflect. So it is not about vote buying or anything. It is about the PTI members not voting in their party because they are embarrassed by PTI's performance. They cannot face the public.
So the answer is basically no. The answer is that you are not going to work with the government no matter what, and it figures because your party
work for the good.
Your party actually wanted to resign from the parliament. It is primarily People's Party. Amazingly, People's Party might be junior partner in the opposition alliance, but it seems to keep on dictating you all the terms, and you keep on following that. But very quickly, Kaswar Klasra, if you want to actually give me one-line conclusion, please do. Then let me ask Asim Shaukat Ali Saab as well. We have to conclude the program.
I think money will keep on working in such type of election, and if the political parties want to put an end to such type of horse trading and money matters, I think they should, PDM must throw their vote behind the PTI to stop such type of horse trading, and the money matters in the future. I think this is the only way forward.
That is a noble sentiment, but it is a sentiment. Rana Saab, I forgot to ask you to give us one-line conclusion. Please do that.
I think if the PTI had brought in these election reforms in time, and there was a way in which they would have tried to make consensus with the opposition, this would not have been the state of matters today. It is sad that a government and a Prime Minister who is incapable of making consensus.
With due respect, sir, I requested you to give me one-liner. I can count 3 lines already. Very quickly, Asim Shaukat sir, your conclusion.